morning. It is Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, talks between Iran and world powers go into overtime as the deadline to reach a framework agreement expires. Former Nigerian dictator Muhammad Buhari regains power through democratic elections, beating incumbent Goodluck Jonathan. And later on the show, we look at the Angelina Effect, how one of Hollywood's brightest stars is promoting preventative surgery for women. But what does that procedure truly mean? Good morning, I'm Yael Levi. We begin straight with the Iranian talks, with the latest from those talks in Lausanne. The deadline for reaching a framework agreement between Tehran and the P5+1 has come and gone. But failing to achieve full agreement on the way forwards, the sides do agree to push negotiations past the deadline. As discussions were suspended for the night, Russia and Iran's foreign ministers claimed a breakthrough on a framework deal curtailing Tehran's nuclear program. But the United States and its part said not all issues had been agreed yet. Now, all of this is taking place now, and talks are set to resume on the technical level this morning after the foreign ministers of France and China left for their respective capitals. First, let's go straight to Lausanne, where Israel Public Radio Foreign Affairs editor Gideon Kutz has been covering the talks. Gideon, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where do we stand now? Understandably, the deadline has passed, but this morning, is there any schedule for the meetings? Is there also an announcement at all expected from the representatives that are there?
Well, first, it is a strange morning after a very strange night that started with a kind of drama when the French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius announced that he will leave Lausanne if the Iranians will continue not to accept the propositions that are given on the table. And about 1:30, when the meeting of ministers of the group of six and Iran was over, Fabius left the place, but he didn't make any declaration. And we could hear from Mohammad Zarif, and from the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov that they achieved a kind of understanding on any central and issues. This was not confirmed by first French and then American sources, who said that such an understanding is not yet on the table. Mr. Zarif said, well, this morning we shall start again and we shall start drafting. And the meeting on the technical level, but not only at technical level, on the level of the political directors, has to start again, while Mr. Zarif is staying, of course, here in Lausanne, and Mrs. Mogherini, Federica Mogherini, who is the foreign minister of the European Union and the chief of the group of six. Not only Mr. Fabius and the Chinese foreign minister left the place.
Right.
Also, the German foreign minister has to leave, and without the foreign minister, any agreement cannot be signed. So we are speaking about a kind of declaration, a general declaration that about the continuation of the talks, and we shall see today if this draft can be done.
If a draft can be done, but as you rightfully mentioned, what we're expecting at this stage, because there's so little coming out of there, is some form of a declaration. But given the fact that the French foreign minister had left, yet Kerry and Zarif are still there, is there any kind of insinuation, because I know there's very little information coming out of there, that there is a declaration on the way, that things are looking good? Because when the Russians and the Iranians are saying there's a breakthrough, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the case, correct?
Correct, because we had, but the problem is that this night we had only them. Mr. Fabius just left. He didn't give the press conference he promised. So he left us without an explanation if there is a success or not. And John Kerry was the man whom we didn't hear and we didn't even see yesterday. Maybe we'll hear from him today. because the American, and that was the problem with the French, the American accepted to go over the deadline, and without precising how much time over the deadline we shall continue. And now the situation is very confused. And that's the problem. That's the reason we are waiting today to have ahead of a possible general declaration or general statement, as they call it, general statement about the continuation of the talks until the end of June. We are also waiting for kind of explanation and declaration first of Mr. Kerry.
For Mr. Kerry. Mr. Gideon Kurtz out of Lausanne, Switzerland, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Obviously, nothing decided yet, but it sounds very dramatic in Lausanne. To figure out what it all means, we are joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning to you. By Middle East analyst, Times of Israel, and Wala Avi Sakharov. Good morning to you. And of course, by the director of the Arms Control and Regional Security Program at the INSS, Dr. Emily Landau. Dr. Landau, good morning to you. Before we break this down, let's take a look at the following report that recaps the dramatic night without an outcome, sadly, as of yet, in Lausanne, Switzerland.
Negotiations continue. Tonight's midnight deadline for a framework agreement on a nuclear deal with Iran has been extended.
We've been working since 7:30 in the morning, and it's been a very long day for all delegations. We have accomplished quite a bit.
Secretary of State John Kerry's been locked in marathon negotiating sessions with top officials from 6 world powers and Iran. The goal for the U.S. and its allies is to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. But in exchange for agreeing to a deal, Iran wants to see the end of economic sanctions that are crippling its economy. But there are major hurdles to getting all sides on board. First, how fast should sanctions on Iran be lifted? The U.S. wants to take a wait-and-see approach. Iran must show progress dismantling some of its programs. But the Iranians want a quicker timeline. And second, if there is a deal, can Iran develop advanced nuclear infrastructure? But a key outstanding question, what will happen to the nuclear fuel? Today, the White House said the president is willing to have the U.S. walk away from the negotiating table.
No deal is better than a bad deal. The United States will not sign on to a bad deal.
The State Department said today there had been enough progress in recent days to merit extending the talks, but there are still several difficult issues remaining. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
DC. We're also joined via Skype by Times of Israel, Washington, D.C. correspondent Rebecca Shimoni-Stoyle. Good morning to you, Rebecca.
Good morning.
Coming out of them, any kind of chatter yesterday, all of this is unfolding as we're sitting here, or maybe not unfolding, who knows. That said, any talk in Washington of what actually is going on there, when the President of the United States at this point comes out and says, I'm ready to walk away from the talks, first of all, does that hold any water? As we were wondering around the table here right now. And what is the talk in Washington? If there is no framework agreement reached, what type of a statement can we expect?
Right. So first of all, the U.S. has said throughout, they've been trying to kind of sort of downplay their estimate of the success of the talks, to say that they're ready to walk away, or that they're willing to walk away from the talks. It's kind of in the same vein as statements that we've heard before from the administration, saying as late as last week, well, there's a 50-50 chance of success, meaning, the 50% chance that isn't success means that either we or the Iranians walk out of the talks. But I think that the realisticness of such a thing happen is fairly low. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a little bit of eyebrow raising about the fact that this is just the latest extension in a series of extensions, something that people here in Washington are incredibly aware of. And the fact of the matter is that whatever will come out of today is less than, and this is something that is also widely recognized here in Washington, the administration had hoped was going to come out of today. That is to say that a robust political framework for a deal we're probably not going to see by the end of the day today. What we are probably going to see is a brief statement of grounds on which there will be future negotiation, which, to be perfectly honest, the ground for future negotiation, somewhat akin to the way that we talk about, say, the peace process, the grounds are already well known. There probably isn't going to be a lot of, quote, breaking of ground on the grounds here today. So I do think that while there is an assessment that the U.S. probably will not walk away from talks, there's a certain amount of, to put it mildly, eye-rolling in Washington at an effort to cast another extension as something greater
than what it really is. Rebecca, do stay with us because we're going to try and figure several things out here. As all of this is happening, and with my esteemed colleagues there on your touch, I want to start with you. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday came out and essentially said, and once again, warning and wagging his finger against this horrific deal that mostly is coming down the way, but also yet again gesturing that he might do something, or Israel might do something. Israel reserves the right. What is the chatter in the Israeli diplomatic halls as all of this is going on in Lausanne? What are they willing to do at this stage?
Well, I think that putting the military option back on the table is something Netanyahu is obliged maybe to do at this point at negotiations. And definitely, I don't think anyone is taking this this threat very seriously, given the fact that if there is an agreement reached between the P5+1 and Iran, it's almost unthinkable to think that that Israel will attack against the will of the international community. But Israel is preparing for the day after, because the real deal is not, and the real deadline is not tonight, yesterday or today. There are two other real deadlines, actually. First of all, a close deadline is when Congress comes back from recess. That is something the Israeli Prime Minister is anticipating. And the other deadline is the 30th of June, and the end of June. That is the deadline when the interim deal expires. That is when a comprehensive agreement, that's the deadline for a comprehensive agreement. And I think in many ways, if we look at this process, it's a very long process. This is the final stretch. Now, the next 3 months, this is the real deal. This is the time to try and influence whatever can still be influenced. But of course, we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this round of talks in Lausanne to understand what will Israel's next step be.
Now, the fact that, the French have walked out, walked out on the level, and Emily, I think, turns to you, they've walked out on the level of talks that we're looking at right now. And we're assuming, because we're assuming, we don't know, everything is all rumor and supposition, is the sticking points that remain, which you are still bothered by. You were still very bothered by. And that was something that we discussed several days ago. It's where certain of this energy is going to go to. Is some of it going to be shipped to Russia, yes or no? From what we know that's on the table right now, just to recap again, why is this such a bad deal?
Well, I would like to know what has been agreed. Okay, what has been agreed? The only thing that we thought was perhaps on its way to some kind of understanding was this issue of shipping out the stockpiles. Now the Iranians have backed away from that. And then we hear from the Americans that they didn't back away from it because there was never really an agreement on that. Look, the information coming out and the messages that are coming out and being fed to the media are, contradictory, partial, obviously, not giving us really any sense of any progress that has been made. All we hear is we've made tremendous progress, but we still have issues at dispute. All I see are the issues at dispute. And I'm wondering whether the French and Germans were not trying to signal to the Americans, look, we have been in this last stretch up till this deadline for a week now. We've been discussing these issues. We just keep turning them around and around and around, and we're not getting anywhere. Either we get somewhere or we say that this isn't working. And the Americans are projecting a sense that they are not going to walk away from that table until they get something. And that something might be anything. And that anything might be just a declaration. The Iranians have been saying they don't want anything signed. Surprise, surprise. They don't want anything signed. We have problems with the Iranians' interpretations over things that have been agreed and are in written agreements. So now they want something that's just a declaration where it's clear that it's an open field for different interpretations and different understandings, and the Iranians will say, no, we didn't really agree to that, or that wasn't what our understanding was. I think that it's becoming close to being like a theater of the absurd. Either, they have been at this negotiation for so long. The issues are well known, right? We're told always that these are esoteric, technical issues that we understand the issues. We know what's on the agenda. What we're looking for is I'm saying analysts that are trying to understand this process, any indication of anything that has been agreed to. What we hear at the level of the rhetoric is from Iran, from day one, one of this round, which began on the 20th of January 2014, what we hear is no, no, no. That's the dominant message from Iran, aside from these laconic statements of we've made progress, but progress on what? What is Iran really willing to do? So the sticking points seem to be all over the place. Every time we hear different sticking points, and we don't hear any resolution of the previous sticking points. So it's the stockpiles, and it's the facilities, and it's Fordo, and it's Arak, and it's weaponization, and it's verification mechanisms. We don't know what's going on with any of that, and my sense is that nothing good is going on with any of the issues.
I mean, it is a clear point that, we don't know all the sticking details, but so much is at play, and I think so much more that we're trying to figure out in terms of rumor and supposition. And I think it's also the Arab world that's looking around at us right now. Avi Sahav, clearly I'm going to you with this. There's something that, yesterday many people brought up the question that it's slightly bizarre that these negotiations are going on right now in Lausanne. And meanwhile, in the Arab world, it's like, the Western world is sitting with good Iran, so to speak. Meanwhile, in the Arab world, Yemen, the Western world has sanctioned or okayed Saudi to go in and help protect it from Iranian proxies. What is the Arab world looking at when it comes to the stakes in these talks? And is it true that the people around believe that the United States has picked Iran as the next big player and is trying to create that type of a scenario?
I think that they're astonished, that the Arab world is astonished by the American policy or non-policy regarding the Middle East and regarding the nuclear projects of Iran. I think that when you look at it, you cannot be either then astonished, because you look at President Obama, and from time to time I close my eyes and I imagine this, someone calls Barack Obama, run Barack, run to the nuclear agreement, as if there's nothing else that you can do. I think that there were some other pressure points that President Obama and the U.S. administration could have pushed the Iranians. We had the golden chance, the golden opportunity right now to push the Iranians because of the internal problems, because of the economy. They didn't do it.
You're talking about more sanctions.
Yes, but they didn't do it at the end of the day. Now, the Arab world, yes, it's completely confused. Why? Because at the same time that they are dealing with the Iranians, they're leading this war in Yemen. The same time that they are dealing with the Iranians.
When Sisi comes out in Sharm el-Sheikh and says, there's going to be also this Arab joint force, is that not also some type of a statement that's directed towards Iran in some ways?
Of course it is. Of course. I think that, yes, for the meanwhile, it's focusing in Yemen, yes. But the declaration that the Arab League decided upon is saying that in any future conflict in which one of the Arab countries, any Arab country, will demand the Arab League to intervene, they will do it. Meaning, what they're doing right now, forming this joint forces of the Arab League, they're preparing themselves for the next war to come, and this will be against Iran. Now, 2 days ago, there were Iranian ships shooting at Egyptian ships. This is not just a coincidence. This is not just happening by a chance. I think that we're at the eve of a bigger war than the one that we had seen in the Middle East between the Shiites and the Sunnis for the last couple of months in Syria, now in Yemen. I think that the next one is in line.
The next one is in line, but staying with this agreement, because I think it trickles to anywhere and everywhere. And Rebecca, you did mention that, the rolling of the eyes, but as Avi Sahav said, there is a feeling, as did Emily, that the American president seems to be, going for it, going for that agreement. That said, he said he's not going to take it to Congress. Can he even do that when such a big agreement or such a big issue is on the table? Can he even pass something like that? And how can he even explain not taking it to Congress? I mean, that's not going to fly, I'm assuming, on a certain constitutional level, even though he has the power to do it.
Well, the short answer is, actually, to paraphrase Obama, yes, he can. He can without, oh, good, at least for laughing in the morning, that's a good start. Yes, he can. He can bypass Congress. It is debatedly within his constitutional rights.
But that's like breaking the dishes, isn't it? I mean, we say in the Middle East, or we say in Israel, that would be breaking the dishes entirely.
It would be, although he would argue that it wouldn't be. And this becomes the question of what precedent are we arguing about? So obviously the people in Congress who really want to see some sort of an up and down vote on an agreement say, well, actually, yes, the president does have, executive autonomies more or less in foreign policy. However, on nuclear agreements, and this is undoubtedly a nuclear agreement.
Yeah.
Congress has traditionally weighed in, and that becomes the sticky point. Is the word is traditionally, it's not chartered. Now, on top of that, and I think that this is a very, very important point, even if Congress were going to somehow get itself a way to weigh in, it's not happening today. Now, the good news is that this agreement is also probably
not
today.
Happening today.
Out of it, is either not going to happen today, or whatever does come out today will not be particularly robust in terms of assessing commitments. However, when we look forward toward June, if that agreement actually happens on time, then we begin to see an agreement that Congress would want to get an up and down vote on. And that's where the real political kind of gamesmanship will come in just in time for summer.
No, which it's exactly, as you mentioned, but, there's also a guest arriving in Israel today, and that's John Boehner. And I'm assuming that it's this political play, but what can he do with Prime Minister Netanyahu other than a photo op that shows clearly that here I am with my best friend in the Middle East? Can we expect statements that will say this is what we're going to do, or is this timed exactly to these talks?
Well, as Rebecca just said, the practical options are not on the table too much. There are not too many practical options on the table, but it will be a signal. I mean, the symbol of Netanyahu today with John Boehner, while if or not there is a joint declaration in Lausanne, is a very strong symbol, and maybe Netanyahu will say this is proof that what I did was wrong. This is proof that the whole, you can look at it in any ways. What was the Congress speech worth? Was it worth it? Did it stop the deal? It didn't stop the deal. Did it influence the deal? And it hasn't influenced the deal at the moment. Will it influence the deal in the future? If now if now John Kerry comes back and shows the Congress a very weak agreement, as it seems, a very weak declaration, even if it's accompanied by detailed documents, as one of the reports said, the important thing is what is not in those documents, what is not agreed upon yet, and Netanyahu's influence on Congress could definitely come into play in the upcoming weeks when Congress comes back from recess. And Netanyahu has met with Mitch McConnell this week. There are several delegations here of American lawmakers. Netanyahu is definitely putting all of his cards on this option.
But looking on, at the day after, Avi, if, it's already a destabilized, there's no argument about that, Israeli-American relationship, are the Americans risking their relationship with the Saudis? How far will the Saudis go if they see that something like that is on the way?
In a way, the Arabs, the Saudi Arabians, Egyptians, Jordanians, and etc., neglected the approach of being supported or being needed by the Americans. They don't depend upon the Americans anymore. They're not waiting for them. That's it. It's gone. Look what they're doing in Yemen. Look what they're doing in other places, like then again, forming this joint armed forces. They don't want to wait for the U.S. administration to come to any kind of conclusions or decisions that will not have any effect in the Middle East. They understand that now it's the time for using power, for using military force in order to stop the Iranians on one hand and the Sunni radicals on the other hand.
In that respect, Netanyahu yesterday mentioned the word in his speech. He mentioned the word partnership with the moderate Arab countries. It's a word we do not hear very commonly, partnership. And in that respect, Netanyahu is the most vocal opposition. But definitely listen, when you hear Avi describe the Saudi position, then this is one that Israel definitely agrees upon, that they do not have to wait for it. They do not have to wait for the U.S. if we see what is happening in the region.
If we see what is happening in the region, but yes, Emily.
I just want to say something on the American situation. I think this is going to come down, to the wider debate on this issue, the wider public debate, and it's going to be very political. And I'm not sure the president is going to be able to sustain his position, which has been consistently marginalizing any criticism of this negotiation, of the emerging deal, of Congress, obviously, of Israel. In other words, when people look, in a very clear-headed manner at what's going on or what's not going on, and this issue of congressional review of any deal, I think, is going to be looking to more and more people as something that is totally legitimate and needs to be done. And going back to the impact of Obama's speech, no, it didn't have an impact on the negotiation. On Netanyahu's speech in Congress. It didn't have a direct impact on what is going on, but it did have an impact on the public debate. We saw it reflected in the media immediately the next day. When you see headlines saying, Obama, you need to answer Netanyahu's concerns in the Washington Post, that's a strong message. And I think people are hearing this, and I think something is going to turn. And if President Obama tries to, use his veto power at the crunch time in June, I think it's going to be very problematic, and it will be politically very difficult.
Yes, but it might push the president. It might have pushed the president into this corner of, no, I'm going all the way to reach an agreement, maybe also because of Netanyahu's
You know what?
speech.
He doesn't have to worry anymore about maybe his political future as president, but he does have to worry, I think, about the Democratic Party. I mean, there will be an election. There's a limit to how much you can push back, especially when people are watching this issue unfold, are seeing how these negotiations are playing out in such a not positive manner, let's say, and I think it is going to have an effect. The public debate will be part of this, and it will be a political issue. So going to the Constitution, going to past arms control agreements, yes, but it's mainly going to be
and I think very true that it's going to have, and it's how much does he care about the Democratic Party? It's going to have an effect on 2016. But real quickly, Avi, from looking at the Middle East, it would, let's say these talks fail, okay, which is an outcome that many people in the Middle East would like to see. Let's say they don't work. What happens then the day after?
But again, by the way, this is very bad also. If the negotiations completely fail...
What is the day after? If negotiations fail, that's what I think we haven't touched on yet, then what is Iran willing to do to solidify its power or get its point across, so to speak?
Well, first of all, we have to mention that we're going back to the same point before the interim agreement of 2014, of January 2014, meaning they will be closer to a nuclear bomb. They're not going to get far and far. So with all the criticism upon this agreement, we need to understand that no agreement is also bad, even for the state of Israel.
Yeah.
But for the Arab countries, I must say that they will be relieved. In a way, they feel that someone needs to hit the Iranians, diplomatically, militarily, everything in order to stop them, in order to stop the progress in the Middle East. Look what's going on around us. They're taking over a state by a state by a state, and the Americans are not doing enough in order to stop them and to say enough is enough is enough.
And one word on failure, Yael, and this is important.
20 seconds.
Failure doesn't mean that it's over. Failure means we stop for now, the Iranians will come back to the table, and the P5+1 might be in a stronger bargaining position.
Yeah, but you're talking like a reasonable person, which is something that it's hard to expect in the Middle East, although let's hope they listen to you. Thank you all for being with us this morning. When we get back, Nigeria has voted, and surprisingly so, changed leadership. We'll take a closer look. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. It is Wednesday, April 1st. I cannot forget. Yeah, I cannot forget this date. 2015. Everything I say today is a joke. But it is no joke that Ruthie Sinai, that was a nice transition.
Yes, very nice.
Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor, I-24 News, is here with us to give us all the news you missed while scanning the headlines.
And she's no fool either.
No fool. Nice. Rum pum pum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so April Fool's Day, otherwise known as April 1st, is the day that the Palestinians have been waiting for at least a year, probably much more planning this. And today they become members of the International Criminal Court in The Hague. But if anybody thinks that, this is going to be the start of, all sorts of petitions, yes, but that Israel will be put on trial anytime soon for alleged or not alleged war crimes. They've got, they better think again. This story from Al Arabiya, as well as other analyses I've seen, basically talks about the fact that for the ICC to start really prosecuting, claims of crimes, it takes a long time. Right until now, the ICC has only prosecuted for genocide and really sort of massive, serious crimes. What the Palestinians are talking about is short of that. And in any case, these things just take time. The ICC is not huge. They're involved in other investigations. And
it's also in simultaneously, Israel this morning, correct me if I'm wrong, also went ahead and I think tried to sue Hamas for war.
It's not Israel. it's an NGO.
It's sort of an NGO, you know.
Right, sort of a tit for tat.
A tit for tat,
yeah.
Exactly.
Saying, you know, you did this to us, we do this to you.
Very adult.
But I have to say, having said all of the above, in terms of symbolism, it is symbolic, because basically what this means is that, again, the Palestinians have a state-like status, whether Israel likes it or not.
And exactly, the Israelites aren't. They are considered. They are being treated as a state.
In terms of the Rome Statute, which is, yes, the ICC definitely.
Yeah. And
okay, we go now to the Daily Telegraph paper I love, British. It actually has news. Lufthansa is going to have to set aside, its insurers are setting aside at least $300 million for compensation for families of the victims. This has to do, I mean, if you want to do the quick calculation, it comes out to more or less $2 million per family.
Per family,
of course,
it doesn't. 149, yeah.
Yeah, of course, it doesn't work that way. What they do is apparently, and of course, none of it ever compensates for the loss of, a loved one.
But the story that it will not go away because it's so horrific, I think, Lufthansa is going to be facing a lot more scrutiny this morning, or was it yesterday? Apparently, it was aware of the mental. Now it says that it was aware of the mental condition.
Exactly.
Of the
until now, they've been saying strict privacy laws didn't enable them to know.
And all of a sudden, there's an email that they found.
They knew, and they did know way back in 2009 during his pilot's training that this guy was.
Yeah, and I think the future of it, this is a horrific story, because 150 people perished, but I think also the future of Lufthansa is in question, because there's so many things that come up out of this that...
And plus which, of Lufthansa, of all airlines,
it's something
you really don't expect.
That has a stellar record.
So pedantic.
We can say it, we're sitting here, you don't expect that from the Germans.
Exactly.
Yes.
So very pedantic, very strict. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Yael has German origins. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Turkey. Which is somewhere where you might expect the following. There was a massive power outage yesterday in many, many towns in Turkey. Very unclear. Obviously, everything ground to a halt. Metro, airlines, so on, elevators. A lot of conspiracy theories. It's a cyber attack. It's the Iranians. It's the Koreans. It's everybody. It's the Kurds. Probably nothing as mysterious as that. It probably has to do with a cut of some cable outage. Where was it? I saw. Anyway, it's probably.
But it wreaked havoc, and it actually
severing of power lines between Europe and Turkey. I don't know. It could still be sabotage.
Look at Turkey, it's a blackout. And being a former New York resident, I lived through several blackouts. Through one
blackouts or brownouts?
Blackouts, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And New Yorkers have sex. Turkish people go and they kidnapped, actually, that was used
prosecutors.
Prosecutor.
Yeah,
so,
a prosecutor.
Yeah, the difference in cultures. Okay, and
the two, by the way, are not mutually exclusive.
Not mutually exclusive.
And okay, Anne Frank, obviously a story that lives on, even though, 60 years have gone by. There's a new study coming out that says basically that she died probably earlier than first thought. Originally, the thinking was that she died
a month before liberation, right?
Right, and it turns out that they're thinking that's probably late January 1945. She and her sister had typhus, and there are more and more indications that they could not have lasted with this illness. They couldn't have, in the concentration camp in the Belsenbergen, they couldn't have lasted until April. Okay, sperm counts.
Sperm counts, yes.
Very important.
Okay. No, very important. Good morning to you too.
So,
yes.
we don't have a single male in the studio here. Okay.
Let's break that apart.
Yeah. So Harvard University has done a really serious study about pesticides in fruit and vegetables. Definitely resulting in lower sperm counts. Strawberries, spinach, peppers, stuff that.
This is a horrific study. This is an excuse not to eat vegetables.
Yeah, well, no. So definitely the researchers are saying no. Eat vegetables.
Eat vegetables, sorry.
Buy organic or whatever it is.
Sorry, this is an excuse to buy more expensive.
Exactly.
Vegetables, okay.
As always.
Yeah.
It's the.
This is the conspiracy of the. I think this is the conspiracy of the of the vegans. But moving along.
Okay, so one last one. The Independent tells us an interesting story about David Cameron. Did you know he's related to Kim Kardashian? Okay.
Wait.
13th cousin. Yeah.
Wait!
Yeah.
Stop!
Yeah. Okay,
What-
so
what?
here
No, I'm sorry.
they had a mutual ancestor, according to this genealogical website. They had a mutual ancestor named Sir William Spencer, born in 1555.
He just won the elections.
Yeah, unless it's April Fool's. We don't know. We don't know.
Okay, so wait, this one, David Cameron. It does sound like April Fool's, or really a brilliant scheme to win the British elections that were kicked off yesterday.
Absolutely. In which case, this genie.com is in on the
he's in on the story, in on the joke. Okay, Ruthie,
so that's
thank you
for today.
Thank you so much,
Very
and
welcome.
do stay with me for just a little while
Sure.
as we move along. Moving on to Nigeria, where in a historic moment, former military dictator Muhammadu Buhari took an unassailable lead in Nigeria's presidential election, the first time in 16 years of democracy that an opposition candidate has defeated a sitting president. Late last night, the Central Elections Committee declared Buhari, a former general who once ruled Nigeria with an iron fist, the winner after he managed to gain more than 2 million votes, more than President Goodluck Jonathan. Buhari did especially well in the northern provinces, which have been hardest hit by the bloody 6-year Boko Haram insurgency. Around 800 people were killed in 3 days of bloodletting in the mainly Muslim north after a Buhari defeat to Jonathan in 2011. We are joined from Lagos by freelance journalist Samuel Okacha. Samuel, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. Good to be here.
Good morning. I think we also have a short report about the elections. Let's take a look and break it down from there.
That Muhammadu Buhari of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared the winner.
Muhammadu Buhari returned to power in Nigeria 3 decades after seizing power in a coup. But this time, he did it in a democratic and historic way. Buhari is the first Nigerian to oust a sitting president via the vote. Incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan called Buhari on Tuesday evening, conceding defeat, an extraordinary step that may help calm his supporters and avoid any violence. In a short statement, Jonathan wished his opponent well and told his supporters political ambition wasn't, quote, worth the blood of any Nigerian. And Nigerians were out celebrating on Tuesday night.
They're out here celebrating because people are tired of impunity, corruption, carelessness, insecurity. As you can see, everybody here in Kaduna, we voted for General Muhammadu Buhari, not because he's a northerner or a Muslim, but because we believe he's going to bring change.
But not all are excited. Some even believe the elections were wrong.
It is not the will of the Nigerian people. If it is the will of the Nigerian people, Goodluck Jonathan will still be the next president. You find out that the election is being rigged by the Hausa people, which is Jiga.
Buhari will be inaugurated at the end of May.
As we said, we are joined by Samuel Okocha from Lagos. Samuel, these elections, first of all, the outcome seems very, very clear, and we see a concession also from Goodluck. Do we believe that, the power transfer is going, because that's what the West is wondering, is it going to be a smooth transition?
Yes, I think it's going to be a smooth transition, especially when the incumbent has conceded defeat and congratulated the president-elect. It will have been much more difficult if he decided to go to court or question the results from the Election Commission. So with that singular act, he has demonstrated that he's indeed a gentleman. And so I don't see any problem in terms of power transfer.
Now, when it comes to the decision, or not the decision, sorry, the outcome, the victor, the winner of these elections, a former, no other way of putting it, he ruled Nigeria in the past with an iron fist, as described by several publications. People say that a dictator was voted in. Is this something Nigeria needs now?
Well, that's a very difficult question. I think what we had during this election is loads of protest votes against the incoming president. There are people who voted Buhari not because he's the best alternative, but because there is this seeming frustration with the present administration. I have met people who said that they don't like Buhari, but they don't want Jonathan. So we saw that play out in this vote. Also, Buhari has a lot of support. He's quite popular, and this popularity appears to have increased with the seeming failure of the government, for example, to bring back the kidnapped girls and the problem of corruption. So it's a mixed a grain of salt.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. Ruthie Sinai still with me. I think it's just mind-boggling that the girls that were kidnapped. What was it? What is it? About a year.
Is it April last year?
It's
Samuel?
almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Samuel, and when were the girls kidnapped by Boko Haram? That's almost a year ago, correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and it's so that's part of his campaign, but it's also the main Boko Haram issue that Nigeria is suffering from.
Well, this is what I have to say. It's kind of reinforces a bit my belief in mankind, because I kept hearing throughout the election campaign that Goodluck had a very good chance of winning, and it just seemed so irrational to think that, you know, whether he's guilty or not, whether he did enough or not, it doesn't matter. But in a situation, such an anarchic, chaotic situation, at least from the way it looks from the outside, in Nigeria, that the incumbent could still go on, ruling. So I think Samuel's absolutely right. I think it was a vote of frustration. I think it also kind of, again, delineates the division in Nigeria between, the more Muslim north and the more Christian south. These are all themes that came to the fore during these elections.
And when it comes to, and Samuel, exactly what Ruthie said, when it comes to religion, bridging those gaps between the north and the south, is this something that could happen possibly now under the new regime, or?
Yes, the new regime can actually make this happen. As a matter of fact, I think the responsibility lies in Muhammad Buhari to see himself not just as a leader of the Muslims, but as a leader of Nigeria. Because in this election, we also saw religion and ethnicity play a major role in the electoral pattern. You discover that Jonathan, for example, won a lot of votes in the southeast and south-south, where it comes from, and we saw a division in the votes in the southwest, which is a mixture of Muslims and Christians. Right. And of course, he had loads of votes from the north. So it will be much, much easier for the president to demonstrate that it's going to go beyond religion and ethnicity to bring everyone along. So the responsibility lies in Buhari. He can actually make that happen.
One can only hope. Really quick.
Is the main hope of Buhari that he will get a handle on Boko Haram somehow, rein them in?
Well, one of the reasons they voted for Buhari, I believe, is because he's a former military ruler, and he has the military experience to win the war against Boko Haram. However, in the past weeks leading to this election, the Nigerian army has made significant gains against
Boko Haram. No, I know. Which leads one to think that maybe, with him at the helm, and I'm assuming that's what the voters hope for, this can actually turn a page. Sadly, all the time we have. Samuel, thank you so much for being with us this morning. When we get back, something completely different, the Angelina Effect. As more and more women choosing preventative surgery, we'll take a closer look. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. This is still the morning edition. Not everything I say today is a joke. And I am still your LV, last I checked. Now, a very important issue. 2 years after getting a double mastectomy, actress and director and humanitarian Angelina Jolie announced last week that she had her ovaries and fallopian tubes removed to avoid the risk of ovarian cancer, the disease that killed her mother at age 56. Jolie, the 39-year-old, carries a mutation of the BRCA1 gene that increases her risk for both types of cancer. She said she went public with her decision so women around the world would know about options available to them. Research showed that her 2013 decision to have a double mastectomy to cut her risk of breast cancer increased demand for genetic testing in what was dubbed the Angelina Effect. Last month, a study by information and advocacy group AARP found that BRCA1 testing rates increased nearly 40% after Julie came out with her announcement in 2014. We're joined in studio by founder and executive director of Bracha, that's blessing in Hebrew, Lisa Cohen. Good morning to you, Lisa.
Good morning.
And because it's an issue that actually connects to us all women, we're also joined by Merav Savir for a different second. Good morning, Merav. But first, let's watch the following report on Julie's dramatic decision and break it down from there.
One of Hollywood's most public faces tonight is sharing a very private decision. Angelina Jolie says a recent blood test detected what could be signs of early ovarian cancer, the very disease that took the life of her mother. About 20,000 American women get ovarian cancer each year. Most will die from it. And so last week, Jolie had her ovaries and fallopian tubes removed, a preventative surgery that she calls the best option. I told myself to stay calm, to be strong, and that I had no reason to think I wouldn't live to see my children grow up and to meet my grandchildren. It is a surgery that comes with severe consequences. I will not be able to have any more children, she writes, but I feel at ease with whatever will come. It's the second stunning health revelation from this leading lady. Nearly 2 years ago, Jolie underwent a preventative double mastectomy after testing positive for BRCA1. Women who carry this gene mutation have a nearly 65% risk of breast cancer and a 39% risk of ovarian cancer.
I didn't expect there to be so much support, and I was very moved by it.
The so-called Angelina Effect prompting more women than ever to get genetic testing for cancer, a reaction that surprised the actress, as she told George Stephanopoulos last year.
It's connected me so much to other families, other women. It's been a really beautiful journey.
But carrying a gene mutation, Jolie says, does not mean a leap to surgery. This time, she emphasized that she and other women just like her have options. She writes, I feel feminine and grounded in the choices I am making for myself and my family. And Jolie also says that when you're faced with decisions like the one that she just had to make, you realize what's important in life. She also now says that her children will never have to say, my mom died of ovarian cancer.
We're also joined on the phone by the director of the oncogenetics from Sheba Medical Center, Dr. Eitan Friedman. Dr. Friedman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I want you to stay with the discussion, though, because I'm turning to Lisa first. Lisa, I know, first of all, you are the, basically the founder and executive director of Bracha, Blessing, and that's the Proactive to Prevent HPOC. But I want to hear your personal story first, okay? You actually made a very difficult decision yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
What was that? Why don't you tell us?
Well, for many years, my family were ill with cancer. My sister got ill at 36, and my mother was diagnosed at 49, so they were coping with cancer at the same time. At that time, we didn't know that it was hereditary, even though it was mother and daughter, and we didn't have enough information to treat it properly, so they both passed away early. And at that time, I found out and did a genetic test and found out that I also carry the mutation, the same as Angelina Jolie, BRCA1. And so I realized I had to make these big decisions, and seeing as I was exactly the same age as my sister got ill, I was rushed to surgery. I wanted to do both a mastectomy and the oophorectomy, so I would be here for my 3 children. That was my ultimate decision, responsibility I took as a single mother of 3 children. I had to be here, and I was going to do anything to live.
When did you go through the procedures?
I was also 39,
yeah.
Like Angelina. It's a difficult age to decide to go through oophorectomy, and from the 2 operations, there's much more fear with doing the oophorectomy.
The oophorectomy being the
ovaries.
And it brings you immediately into menopause, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, your body goes after the operation. It goes through, a very hard process itself, correct?
It's not just going into menopause, but because it's immediate generally in a woman's body, it would be over a period of time.
Now, Lisa, I want to ask Dr. Friedman first, though. Dr. Friedman, to begin with, I think, when we're listening to stories as such, and I think it's commendable, but in many ways, there are people who will argue that these are operations, that these are, mutilating yourself, so to speak. Does the medical community have specific information that this does prevent cancer? Because there are arguments that these are procedures that don't necessarily need to take place.
No doubt about it. That it's been proven times and again
that the only way to actively reduce your risk for developing breast and/or ovarian cancer is risk-reducing surgery. There is absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind, and anybody who does that does not read the literature and doesn't know what he's talking about. It's absolutely the only means to actively reduce the risk. There are some women who prefer to adhere to an early detection scheme. It's very effective in terms of breast cancer, but it does not actively reduce the risk. There is no early surveillance scheme for ovarian cancer, and this phrase translates to the fact that 75% of women diagnosed with ovarian cancer every year in Israel or elsewhere in the world. The disease is not limited to the ovarian tissue itself, which reduces the chances of surviving this disease. So, in essence, it is recommended for individuals, for women who want to actively reduce their risk for developing breast and or ovarian cancer to take their fate in their own hands and actually do the right thing for them to reduce to perform risk-reducing surgery.
Would you recommend this? Would you recommend this? And I'm just thinking out loud, Lisa. When you had the surgery, you were 39, and you had your children. At the end of the day, after a surgery as such, a woman cannot have children anymore. Am I correct in saying that? Obviously.
Yeah, but there are developments that help women before that age. We're talking about from 35 onwards to take out the ovaries. And there are now developments that you can take out the eggs, freeze them, and then take out the ovaries, and then be pregnant and be there for your children.
How old are your children?
I have 2 soldiers and a daughter who's 14.
It's 14. Would you, and your daughter, are you concerned? Is this something, is this type, I'm assuming obviously you are concerned. That's a stupid question. But your daughter, this is something that you would recommend that she gets herself checked out at some point to see if she carries the gene as well?
I think my children have grown up with the information in our housing, as I've been volunteering for the last 8 years, ever since I had the operations, after they lost their grandmother and aunt. I think they will automatically know to have the test, but I don't spend my time worrying about it because it's something I won't know until they're 25, when it's the recommended age in Israel.
In Israel too.
Have the test.
And Dr. Friedman, do we find that around the world, as was mentioned in our report, that women get checked more often because of what we call the Angelina Effect, so to speak? That there's more.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. There's certainly an effect of a celebrity coming out and saying, guys, these are the realities. You should get tested. Not only there is the Angelina Jolie effect in terms of genetic counseling and testing, but there is also a notable effect in the number of women who actually seek risk-reducing surgery. So if that was a no-no at the beginning of around the 2001, now women are actively asking for that option, and we're more open about it, about discussing these surgical options with them. And I think it has a very, very positive effect. Not that I'm advocating only just do that, but I'm saying women should have choices and they should make the right choices. And it's a very, very personal decision. And the fact is that ever since Angelina Jolie has done the surgery, the number of women in Israel who elected to perform risk-reducing surgery has tripled or quadrupled. And it's a very, very encouraging thing to know that women do make the right choices, do make appropriate decisions based on science.
I know, right? The world should trust us more. I agree. Dr. Friedman, thank you. Yes, you wanted to say.
In our organization, Bracha, our main aim is to give information. We find that people don't have the right information. There are even doctors that aren't giving enough information, and we give the information so each woman can make the right choice for herself.
Okay. And this is the organization. We'll do this real quick. If you take a look at me, this is Bracha, and in the Middle East, in Israel. Basically, for information, as mentioned, information about this very, very difficult procedure, but recommended to be checked nonetheless. Lisa, thank you so much. And we locked you in studio because we're moving to something completely different. Has nothing to do with this. Much more important. That was the wiper. Yes, Mirav. For the viral spiral that is the web review.
The web review.
The web review.
A lot different than wondering when my next doctor appointment is.
Yes, I wanted to. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're going to start off with Sports Illustrated. Keith Olbermann of ESPN tells NCAA to pull Final Four out of Indiana. This is all backlash from the Indiana Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Athletes, though. Come on.
They've all come out.
They've come out.
It is not only Keith Olbermann, this is the NFL has come out, even NASCAR has come out condemning what Indiana is doing. And just for the record, what Indiana has done is that they voted into effect the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which basically lets people discriminate on the basis of religion. So there was a whole big deal.
It basically enables people to be homophobic.
It's exactly what it is. It's basically if a wedding cake shop doesn't want to sell a cake to a couple because they're gay, well,
there you go.
I'm a Christian,
okay
I'm
that.
allowed to. So what's come out is that Keith Olbermann went on a really long rant about the fact that the NCAA, which is having the Final Four in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium this weekend, needs to pull out. And not only that they host their headquarters are there, they should move their headquarters out of there, that the NFL should move the Super Bowl from there, and a lot of people are pushing for this to really ostracize Indiana.
Yeah. Okay,
discriminating in a different way.
The brave, home of the free, but listen, it's a commendable move given that, what they call the Religious Act?
The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which, just to point out, 20 other states have. They're just voiced differently, and they were voted into effect when LGBT rights weren't such a high priority and a big topic.
Yes,
moving on. We're going to Indonesia, where models in gas masks show environmental crisis. They were wearing designer dresses, gas masks, and rubber boots as they walked down the runway in Indonesia.
I thought that was the Tel Aviv look.
Only on days like today when it rains, or when we have sandstorms. What they did, it's in an area that was named one of the 10 most polluted places on Earth in 2013.
Yeah, that's a great way
it's an initiative between models and Greenpeace, and it's part of a campaign called Detox that actually huge companies like Zara and Adidas are also taking part in, and they're committed to the campaign. So
more power to them, for happy news.
Yeah. From happy news, if you want to. Okay. Moving on, Robin Williams. There was the whole fight for his estate, and during that fight between the mother and children, it came out that Robin Williams restricted use of his image for 25 years after his death. So he really thought this one through. He he passed on the right.
Okay, yeah. Not
he
a laughing matter.
No, it was uncovered during. It was uncovered that he left a message saying he wants to restrict usage of any images of himself for 25 years. And he passed on the rights to his name, signature, and photographs to the Windfall Foundation, which is set up in his name. And what it means is that his image can't be digitally inserted into films or advertising like they did with Audrey Hepburn.
Okay, it's not that we can't watch his films now for 25 years.
No, it's just that you can't use him in anything else.
He cannot be in a Pepsi commercial. Yeah, I got you.
In a Pepsi commercial making imitation. Exactly. And it's actually come out that it's because of what happened surrounding the Michael Jackson estate, where they think this is where the IRS claimed that the government is owed more than $500 million in taxes from his publicity rights.
I gotta say, problems that only celebrities have after they die.
Yes, and problems for celebrities while they're still alive. The roast. This Comedy Central roast.
I'm sorry, Lisa, that was the roast of the century. This is actually the main news of the day, Justin Bieber. Go ahead.
All right, so comedians are actually under fire for the transphobic jokes that they had against Bruce Jenner during the Justin Bieber roast. And we actually, I believe we have a short segment of the roast that doesn't have to do with Bruce Jenner.
Yeah.
Now, I got to keep it real with you, Justin. You've been through some hard times. Now, when your mama was 17 years old and got pregnant, everybody told her to get on an abortion, right? And they still trying to convince her right now. But Justin's life changed when Usher heard one of his songs and liked it, which only goes to prove that Usher ain't black.
I gotta say, I mean, Justin Bieber being roasted seriously is like a gift.
To all of us.
Yeah, to mankind, to the world. But the decision to go and bash it into Jenner is really, really bizarre. Who was in that roast?
So everybody from Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy
made an appearance, and even he had jokes about Bruce Jenner. To Martha Stewart, making jokes about three ways. It was a very interesting mix of celebrities, but the big thing that came out of it is that they're all being attacked for the jokes that they made against Bruce Jenner. Mind you, his daughter was in the audience and his stepdaughter was in the audience, and some of the jokes they were making is, if you marry Justin Bieber, who's going to walk you down the aisle? The only man in the family is Chloe.
Oh my God. So sadly all the time we have, but on that happy note, stay classy. Now I had to say that. When we get back, something completely different, which will be a closer look into focus. Stay with us. First, the news. morning. Welcome back. I-24 News Morning Edition on this April 1st, 2015, where everything is a joke but Daniel Zeri's voice.
Yes, I thought if I would make a fool of myself one day, April's Fool is probably the best day to do that.
You're not making a fool of yourself. Look, I'm commiserating. You're not making a fool out of yourself. Daniel Zeri of Focus Magazine. I think that you have Borovich, who is also here.
I will be making a fool out of myself. I'll try to.
You always do, honey. You always do.
So.
But that you, Borovich here will agree with me that you sound very, very sexy.
Well, a lot of people say that. But
yes.
It's just a little
Yeah,
weird.
I'm about to tell you to sing, happy birthday, Mr. President.
Oh, I could.
But Daniel Zeri of Focus Magazine.
If that's not dedication.
That is dedication.
Focus Magazine.
A raise for you.
Love it so much that I'm here.
Amen. But I think you should get a raise. And so, Focus Magazine, which airs tonight, but what is featured on it?
Well, this week we decided to go to Singapore, to focus on Singapore, in light of the passing of Lee Kuan Yew, who was the first Prime Minister of Singapore since 1959. He was Prime Minister for 31 years.
It's like Benjamin Netanyahu. Wow.
Almost.
Okay.
A little bit of a way to go, but almost.
Hold on. I'm going to get to you. I'm going to make you laugh one day. Okay. Moving on.
Or maybe I will with this. But basically, that makes him the longest acting prime minister in the entire world. So just for a
Watch out, Netanyahu.
So he was not just a prime minister. He was the founding father of this city-state that's Singapore. He's very much of a legend there, praised for a lot of things that he did in the country, how he developed the country over the past 50 years. A lot of people call him a visionary and the architect of more modern Singapore. So I want to give you a little bit of the things that he did. First of all, architecture, amazing. You just go there and I have had the chance to visit, and it's just beautiful. And then economically speaking, there's a GDP per capita that is one of the highest in the world.
In the world.
And listen to this, only 2% unemployment rate. Totally unheard of.
Why are we still here?
It's amazing. It almost seems not real because it's such a joke. 2%.
And free, great food. I was about to say sushi, but it's probably not that food. Yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
And 95% of Singaporeans are also the owners of their own apartment. If you compare this to the situation in Israel,
I was going to say, why are we still here?
Housing was a big.
What is the percentage of people who own?
95%.
And that was a place with no national resources, ethnically divided country, had nothing. He made it into just an unbelievable place.
Unbelievable place. And if you compare that number to Israel and how housing was a very big topic in the election campaign, wow, 95%. But to achieve all this, it's gone through a very rigorous system, very organized. One of the economists that actually we interviewed on the show, which you'll see tonight, speaks about how the system's not difficult to put in place. What is important is to have the leadership that wants to move forward with it. But we actually, some Singaporeans are saying that maybe the passing of Lee Kuan Yew is actually the passing of an era, and it's going to allow the country to probably tweak the model a little bit and adapt it to modern times.
I don't want to use the word iron fist, but he was a strict ruler. Yeah, he was a strict ruler. He also made he didn't hide the fact that
he did not. He did not. And actually, I want to show you a little bit of a clip of one of the journalists that we interviewed who speaks about this new era, maybe after his passing.
After this, let's have a listen.
Yes, I think you can definitely describe it as a passing of an era, because not only Lee Kuan Yew has passed on, all his lieutenants are no more. So I think it's definitely a passing of the era. Another reason why it's a passing of the era is the society has changed. The society is not as it used to be before. It's a much more modern society. They get information from all over the world. And the kind of society that Lee Kuan Yew founded in the 1950s is quite different. Talking about the present Prime Minister and his son, I don't think that he is going to follow all the policies that his father introduced. In fact, we can already see that happening in he trying to, Lee Kuan Yew believed that there's no such thing called a free lunch. But his son has come to the conclusion that that is not possible. especially when you have major demographic changes taking place. And one of the changes is how the population is aging, and aging very fast. Now, a Lee Kuan Yew policy of a completely non-welfare state cannot hold anymore.
It is interesting, though, to see if the son is going to follow in the footsteps.
Absolutely interesting. And, you know, all this prosperity and modernism that Lee Kuan Yew brought also came at a great price, especially for us journalists, and that is freedom of speech. Media is very, very much restricted in the country. It's controlled by the government. Almost every aspect of the media is, and there's severe punishment for people who criticize the authorities a little bit too much. And you know, I think one thing that's interesting to see is how the younger generation refers to that, because we actually interviewed someone on Focus, which I'll show you in a minute, to talk about how the young generation, the people in their 20s who are using the internet, who are using social media, you know, see this restriction on freedom of speech, on freedom of the press. So I have a little clip of Wanda Hu. She's a working young adult in her 20s, and she explains what she thinks about this.
Okay, let's have a listen.
I think the question, okay, so the main thing why I decided that, you know, I would do this interview was because this in itself is good proof that that is not true. On social media as well as, well, basically any public platform, if you want to open up a blog talking about political issues, it's entirely possible, but with the freedom of speech comes also a responsibility for what you say. So you can't just say whatever you want and expect there to be no consequences. So for the most part, I think a lot of the media has blown out of proportion some of the incidences where we've had bloggers who said things about our government that was not true and had to face some amount of consequences. But if you look carefully at how much people can get sued for and paid out in terms of defamation, the government has been very, very lenient with people who have tried to mar their reputations.
You know, what's fascinating about this is that she's paraphrasing a well-known phrase that says that with great power comes great responsibility. Because, and that is true, but with freedom of speech, actually, it's not a mutual, as we say, as you and I discussed out of the studio, you know, freedom of speech has nothing to do with consequence, and it's supposed to be a right.
You actually are supposed to be able to talk and not have any consequences. I think one of the funny things, I mean, you could call it funny, but none of the people that we interviewed really, you know, said, yes, I feel limited, or I feel restricted, or I don't feel good about it.
The fascinating bit is that the human nature and the human race is, if you are healthy, if you are, you know, if you're not starving, if you have food and good housing, and you're happy in your life, there is no reason for you to criticize.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah, even if we know, obviously we don't know what means were used to get to that point. Yeah, but
definitely, you know, it's interesting that they don't see it as a bad thing at all. Actually, she said in another part of the interview that she feels that in a country that's free of crime, she thinks it's plenty of freedom to be able to walk in the street and not fear, and she'd rather have that over freedom of
something
speech.
else. And all of this tonight, Focus Magazine, what time?
After the evening edition.
And okay, so do watch it, Singapore Inside Focus.
My voice will come back next week.
We love it this way, and you will be singing us off the show today.
Marilyn Monroe? Okay.
Yes. As we move on to you, Avrovic, the man, the smile, the funniest man I know. With the sports, anything and everything about sports, now that Israel bashed Belgium 5-0. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yes.
April Fool's Day, but no funny news today.
No funny news. Shoot. What do you have for us?
On different levels. First of all, Israel last night playing against Belgium in a very big game, preliminaries for the European Championships. This game taking place in Jerusalem. Israel coming off a very big loss to Wales and Haifa a few days ago, but then again losing yesterday, playing really bad football during the first half, much better during the second half, but it didn't help. An interesting point is that Israel played in the stadium, Teddy Stadium of Beitar Jerusalem, and we already spoke about Beitar Jerusalem not having any Arab player ever, not today, not in the past, no Arab player, no Muslim.
Almost, yes.
And who scored the goal yesterday for Belgium?
Marouane Fellaini, whose family came from Morocco to Belgium. So almost every given Saturday, there's an Arab guy from another Israeli team scoring against Beitar Jerusalem. Yesterday, an Arab Belgian guy scored against Israel. Comes to show you, which
Speak your mind. Yes.
Which connects us to the other story, which is much, much bigger.
And that is?
And intimidating to Israeli sports and football. And this is that a few days ago, the Palestinian Authority Soccer Federation appealed to FIFA, the world governing body of football, against Israel. And it said that Israel should be banned from FIFA because Palestinian teams cannot freely move from place to place. Players, they want to bring players from abroad, they can't do it many times. They want to bring equipment, they can't do that. And they also appeal against teams from the West Bank, from the occupied territories as they define it, playing in the Israeli league. Now this is a very, very serious matter.
No, because I have to say before you continue that it's kind of spearheaded with the ICC move.
Exactly, exactly, and with the BDS and everything.
It's moving along. And they're taking everything to the international arena.
The fact of the matter, exactly. And next month the FIFA will be convening in Brazil. And over there, Michel Platini, the French president of UEFA, of the European Federation, talked to his very good friend Avi Luzon, who's the chairman of the Israeli Football Authority, and he told him, Avi, listen, this time it's serious. You guys must do something very fast because we might not help you this time. Now, this was released in world media yesterday. It's big, big news.
Now, when the move is such by the Palestinian Authority to FIFA, can it? What is the inclination of FIFA? Will they actually, go ahead?
They could, yeah, but when they get 2/3 of votes they can disband Israel from various competitions. They can do other things. Now, this is bad news because Israel plays now in Europe because we don't play against Arab teams from our region because we don't have diplomatic relations. So for us to go to the World Cup, we need to play through Europe. And UEFA, Michel Platini, the president of UEFA, can also say, listen, as long as the Palestinians are treated in that manner, the Palestinian football, you will not be playing with us in Europe, because we know that today many Israeli businesses cannot do business. And there are a lot of, with the BDS and with a lot of artists not coming to Israel. So now maybe there's the threat of football not coming to Israel. And as someone who covers Israeli football for 12 years, this could be really just a devastating move for Israeli sports.
Is there an understanding within the Israeli Football Association how serious this is?
Of course, in the Israeli Football Association, there is an understanding. The fact of the matter is that they're not in charge of the security measures. It's the Israeli government who's in charge. Now, I think if Benjamin Netanyahu will not go and speak to the Palestinians about their claims and see how we can work together to maybe solve those things, Israel, this is just something, because so many people here love soccer. Take away from them the European competitions in soccer and Israel being part of the. So you're taking I
am not making light of this issue because clearly it's close to your heart. No, I'm not making light. But if eventually there'll be some sort of negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians because soccer was about to be lost, then seriously, I wouldn't believe in anything.
I also say football.
Yes,
why we don't hear voices in this country of people saying, there are a lot of teams, let's play a friendly match against the Palestinian team. Why can we not do that? Because what is soccer if not a shared passion of Israeli and Arabs? So why not utilize? Soccer is not just a game, it's a language, it's an international language, it's a shared passion. Utilize it to do good, to bring people together.
Sadly,
and you don't hear those voices, you don't hear initiatives. It's just so.
This problem. That's why the voices.
It is just so sad to see how people here do not believe in the notion of peace, that they don't even think of ideas of maybe bringing people together, and we're now facing this travesty.
No, I mean, clearly it's an issue, and again, I don't want to make light of it because you are very passionate about it, and you are right. And you are right, but all these moves that are being played now in the international arena may be something that'll change leaders' minds. If basic.
Is that the only way to change people? Yeah, it's sad that we need to reach this point.
You're asking for reason in a region that doesn't have reason. But basketball.
Basketball, yeah. Gareth Bale, the guy who scored 2 goals against us a few days ago, the Welsh superstar who plays for Real Madrid. We can also see he's somewhat of a basketball star because look at him now.
I definitely will.
And with a Miami Heat jersey.
Yummy.
That's the guy.
Okay.
And look at him now. You know, shooting. Oh, he missed that
shooting
one.
Or not, yeah.
But he supposedly is making the next one. Yes.
Yeah.
So listen, this guy is first of all the fastest guy in Wales. You know, he's an international sprinter,
right.
And then he's an unbelievable football player. You know, Real Madrid paid for him 100 million euros to move him from England to Spain, and now we see him scoring goals.
But
also, you can see a good-looking guy.
Good-looking guy,
and,
but
and
darling,
you know, a funny guy, and just like
know,
a very talented.
Is the question.
He's not married yet, so he doesn't.
Not married yet. Daniel Ziri, this one's for you.
I will write that down.
Please. All the time that we have, sadly, folks, don't forget to check us out on all those social networks: Facebook, Twitter, I24 News, and of course, check in tomorrow morning, I24 News Morning Edition, the place to be, because that's where Daniel Ziri will be singing. So, tune in tomorrow morning, and of course, stick around for the news.